He's been on many television programs. The one he must be very proud of is when he was on Meet the Press. He was profiled in USA Today, given the moniker the Dean of Death, which described him as, quote, arguably the nation's second most, oh no, it doesn't say second, the nation's foremost criminologist. That was funny. He often gives lectures and expert testimony. He's been on campuses, hundreds of campuses around the country, 15 appearances before the United States Congress. He's given presentations to President and President and Mrs. Clinton, Attorney General Reno and Princess Anne. He received the Hugo Adam Badeau Award for Death Penalty Scholarship. No, there's nothing other than that. And I give you Jamie Foxx, my friend and colleague.
And my topic today is sort of the other side of extreme killing. And in a certain respect, I really enjoy talking about school shooting, which is my schoolyard terror. Partially because even though serial murder is fascinating, absolutely fascinating topic for us, for you guys, in a sense there's not much we can do about serial killing except perhaps to be entertained by the latest true crime book or movie. Whereas in the area of schools, certainly there's a lot we can do, and as you'll see, there's a lot that we're doing that we shouldn't be doing. Now, this basically is in three parts. As you can see, part one is this whole sense that there's an epidemic out there of school shootings, high school shootings like Columbine, college shootings like Virginia Tech and Northern Illinois University. In fact, of course, when Virginia Tech occurred a little more than a year ago, it was April 16th of last year. The on-air crews and anchors, they were almost giddy, talking about, oh, it's the biggest mass murders, the biggest school shooting ever. It's the bloodiest, it's the deadliest, it's the worst. I don't know, we must really love records in this country, even records like this. But we seem to be so obsessed with the fact that it was the biggest and the worst. And you know what records are there to be, for? They're there to be broken. And that's some of the problem with our obsession with 32, the biggest, the worst, is because it challenges other people who may see Mr. Cho as a hero, and there are those people who see him as a great guy. He got even with all those people on campus who had victimized him. This speaks to others, his followers, and says, maybe you can outdo it. Maybe you can outdo your hero. And of course, in terms of the high school, we just saw the 9th anniversary of the Columbine tragedy. It doesn't seem like 9 years. It's still fresh in our minds, of course. And, you know, I entitled this part of the talk, Schoolyard Terrorism. And I don't want to, say this is the same thing as Al-Qaeda. But in certain respects, there's similarity between schoolyard terror and international terror. And as you'll see when we talk about things like arming teachers, very similar to arming pilots. We talk about security. We talk about profiling and prediction. By the way, they planned out the crime. People say they just suddenly snap and go berserk. No, they don't snap and go berserk. This is very well planned. They planned it for April 20th. Anybody know what the significance of April 20th is? Anybody?
Hitler's birthday.
Hitler's birthday. Now, they weren't neo-Nazis, and they weren't skinheads. They just kind of admired Hitler for the power and the control that he had achieved. And they liked the idea of power and control. So they planned it to celebrate the birthday. But anyway, in this diary, if you can't read that, that's okay. It says in there that if they were lucky enough to survive the attack at Columbine High School, maybe their next move would be to hijack an airplane and fly it into the skyline of New York City. Now, what's so interesting about that is when 9/11 actually happened, many of us said, oh, how unfathomable, unimaginable that someone actually would use an airplane as a weapon. That's what the intelligence people Virginia said, oh, we can never imagine something like that happening. Well, 2 kids in Colorado imagined it. Now, I'm not saying that Osama was reading their diaries, but it is kind of odd. If these 2 kids in Colorado could think of the fact that people would use a plane as a weapon, why couldn't our intelligence folks? Now, we have, in this country, been very concerned, of course, about school violence, and I'm sure that in the high schools where you went to after Columbine, there were lots of changes, in the middle schools, lots of changes, more security, all sorts of changes out of the concern about Columbine happening in your school. And if it could happen in a place like Littleton, Colorado, you know, which is the model for South Park, as you probably know, then it could happen anywhere. So we all better protect ourselves and protect our schools. Well, what we have to do is to keep this all in perspective. We're talking about an episode that's extremely rare. In fact, even in the worst years, in the early 1990s, when we had as many as 50 school children every year being murdered in their schools, when you consider the fact that there are 55 million school children in this country, the likelihood of someone being gunned down at school is literally 1 in a million. Now, I don't want to minimize the pain and suffering of those people, and their schools, and their communities, and their families, and all of us who have to watch the news footage of kids jumping out of windows in places like Columbine High School. But let's talk about it. Our schools are safe, extremely safe. In fact, for lots of kids, their risk of being victimized at school is significantly less than the risk of being victimized at the mall, in the playground, maybe even at home. Yet, we focus so much on this, but our schools are safe. Even when a threat has been made, our schools are safe. I'll tell you a little story. When I used to live in Sharon, Mass, where Jack lives. Our kids were growing up. And when my son was a sophomore, there was a threat made by 2 freshmen that they were going to blow up the school on Friday. Black Friday, they called it. I don't know. Why do they always want to do this on Friday? Black Friday. Maybe they went a long weekend or something. I don't know. Black Friday, the rumor went through the school. And I remember going to I was at Starbucks the night before in the center of town, and people, oh, I'm so scared, said these 2 girls. I think I'll skip school tomorrow. Maybe I'll go prom dress shopping. You know, how convenient for her to take a day off from school. Well, I made my son go to school that Friday. He didn't want to go. And I drove him to school and noticed there were very few cars in the student or faculty parking lot, lots of police cars. See, I knew he was not in danger by going to school that Black Friday because these 2 kids had been identified and they were in custody. So I made him go. When he came home, he was really angry, because the absentee rate that day at Sharon High School was 86%. Which meant nothing happened that day. All they did was spend the whole day watching television. And it wasn't even like good TV. It was like Channel 2. It was like work all day, watching Channel 2. And he was so angry, he came home that day, called up our daughter, and said, how come Mommy and Daddy made me go to school? All my friends, they were out. And our daughter said, well, Alex, only the mommies and daddies who loved their children kept them home from school that day. Thank you so much, Jennifer. See, I didn't want to give these kids the power that they wanted to achieve. They closed down the school thanks to all those other parents who decided, better safe than sorry. When you think about the risks, I don't want to say that there's not a risk, and let's say don't worry about it. But there are many things we can do to make our kids safer. I mean, here are some of the risks that our kids face in their lives. And in fact, the chance that a child gets killed on the way to school in a bicycle accident or a motor vehicle accident is significantly higher than the chance of being killed at school by an armed classmate. Yet to see these parents running around, we need metal detectors in our schools. Our kids aren't safe. Yet their children are driving around in the neighborhood without a bicycle helmet. If we really want to protect kids in this country, we'd have a national bicycle helmet law. No, we're not going to do that. We'd rather just put metal detectors in our high schools. Now, people often ask me, what's the matter with kids today? That's that refrain from Bye Bye Birdie. I'm not going to sing. Jack can sing. I can. People, what's the matter with kids today? Why is all this happening now? Well, in many respects, kids today aren't any different than earlier generations. We've always had alienated adolescents, so as long as we've had adolescents, and I think that's a long time. Adam and Eve, they must have been teenagers, right? And we've had schoolyard bullying for as long as we've had schools. And that's a long time too. In fact, true confessions here, I was a bully victim. I was severely bullied when I went to school. I was 4'11", I weighed 182, I was huge, I was ugly, I had crew cut and thick glasses, and I was a slob, and it was terrible. And I was also one of the only 2 Jewish kids in an all WASP private school. So I really got it bad. And just so you think that I wasn't bullied just because I was Jewish, I was also bullied at Hebrew school. So, now, I never even considered, it never even crossed my mind to bring a gun to school. Who would think of that? But of course, today, the role model's there. So had I grew up today, maybe I wouldn't have thought about that, would have thought about the other people who've done similar deeds. So what we are seeing now is a contagion effect, where kids who are bullied really do consider, perhaps more than once, the possibility of idolizing people like Klebold and Harris. But you wonder, where does it all come from? Who started this contagion? Well, actually, Barry Lukitis was a teenager, 14-year-old, in Moses Lake, Washington, who was a big fan of the book called Rage, which actually was written by Stephen King. He used a pseudonym at that point in his career. And there's a story in Rage about a kid who went to school, dressed in a black trench coat, pulled out a gun in algebra class, started shooting his classmates and teacher, and on the way out he said, "Sure beats algebra, don't it?" He would have probably said, "Doesn't it?" if at the English class. Well, I know that Stephen King says this is the only thing he ever regrets writing. And he shouldn't regret it too much because, although Barry Lukitis probably got the line, "Sure beats algebra, don't it?" from his book, I'm sure something else equally bad would have happened were it not for this book. I mean, literature, and even movies, and even video games don't give people the ideas that aren't already there. It may pattern the behavior, but it certainly doesn't give someone the motivation for murder. But we do have a contagion effect because of the massive publicity when these events occur. They're all over the media. The satellite trucks parked outside the school, and you see it unfold in live, living color. Now, 99.9% of the students identify with the pain and suffering of the victims. They pray every day that a Columbine would not happen in their school. But the problem is, there's a few kids who identify with the power of the perpetrators. Same slide. By the way, this is my son. I didn't decapitate him in real life. He didn't want me to see him here. Hi, Alex. You see, as adults, we look at this and we say, "Oh, these are the monsters next door." Yeah, because we're adults. We're grown up. We're mature. Well, not me, but you guys are. And but how many 14-year-olds look at that and say, "Gee, not only did they get even with all the bullies and the nasty teachers, but they're famous for it. I'd like to be just like them." So, what do we do in response? Well, we have this view that there's this epidemic because of all the massive publicity. And when we think things are at epidemic proportion, we start thinking about extreme responses that sometimes don't work, and in this case, actually make matters worse. Now, I don't believe in bullets in my slides. You know, I'm a nonviolent person, that's why I'm a criminologist. So little unhappy faces is fine for me. I hate the people I was recently at a press conference at the State House when they wanted to extend the Shannon grants, the anti-gang grants, so they said, "We need to target at-risk youth." Target? And here's my bullet points. And then he said, "Last year we had $11 million, this year we're shooting for 30. How many people want to shoot emails to people? I'll shoot you an email. No, just send it, please. Anyway, these are some of the bad ideas that I'll go through that don't work, and not only don't work, can make matters worse. 95% of the money spent in this country for violence prevention in our schools is spent on hardware, metal detectors, surveillance cameras. By the way, Columbine has surveillance cameras, and what good it did them, all they did get some nice footage of Klebold and Harris gunning down their classmates in the cafeteria, thanks to the cameras. And I know one school where they spent $1 million on a very high-tech surveillance system with cameras everywhere and monitors everywhere. Then they realized they didn't have any money left in the budget to pay someone to sit and watch the monitors. So now they have cameras and monitors, but no one's watching. So they don't have money, but somehow they're spending money on metal detectors. Now I know in the short term people may feel safer. Oh, good, we got a metal detector. Our kids are safe. But you know, what it really does, it's not foolproof. I mean, if a child really wants to get a gun into school, he can think of a way, like, how about a window? Or he can do like 2 kids in Jonesboro, Arkansas did, where they pulled the fire alarm and waited till all the kids came out and outside into the back of the school for this drill they had pulled, and they shot them out there and killed 5. So they didn't even have to bring a gun into school. And so it actually does challenge kids to show that they can outfox, I love that word, fox, outfox the administration. You think you're so smart? Watch me. Plus, I'm not sure we really want our schools to look like fortresses. It's not particularly good for the learning environment, and it's a constant reminder to kids, hey, you've got a bullseye on your back. That's why we have all this metal detector stuff here. It doesn't work. Another thing schools are doing, they want to be prepared. In fact, this was a guideline from a conference recently here in Worcester, Massachusetts Department of Education, that they need to develop procedures to train and drill students and faculty in schools across the state to be prepared should someone show up with a gun. Now, remember this 1 in a million chance thing happening. We need to be prepared. We need to practice. We need to drill. Now, this kind of, I call it duck and cover because it kind of reminds me of what I did when I was a kid. And the faculty here will remember this as well because we're all old people here. And when we were growing up, we weren't concerned about school shooters. We were concerned about the bomb, the atomic bomb. And back in school, in the 60s, we had drills, duck and cover drills, where, now, I'll tell you, I never really worried about the atomic bomb, because I was 11 years old. I worried about what were they having for lunch, and would I survive the bullies to get to eat it. I never thought about the bomb, that's my parents' work. Except those few days when we had these drills, it really kind of scared me. I go home and I think, what if there was a bomb? What if I don't ever wake up? And I was really worried and upset. Now, did these drills prepare me? See, now I look back. And I now know that I grew up in Newton, Massachusetts. And if a bomb fell in Boston, Massachusetts, my desk in Newton wasn't going to protect me. It would be vaporized, just like me. So what did it do? Well, it scared me. It didn't protect me, but it did scare me. And 40% of schools nationwide now use them, thinking this is a good idea. Prepare those students. Now, we can take a lesson from the airlines here. See, you know, a chance of an airline crash is about the same as the chance of a school shooting. Now, what do they do in the airlines? You know, they get on the microphone and say, in case of a water landing, which, by the way, is a euphemism for crash, because planes don't land on water. They tell you what to do. They're always smiling. That will tell you what to do in case of a war landing. And you probably, if you're on a flight, you do your last-minute BlackBerry emails, and you don't really pay attention to what she's saying. You just hope that they've been through training, and the pilots have. And you also hope that the kid with the green hair who's sitting in the exit row, he'll know what to do. Now, could you imagine one day if the flight attendant said, now we're going to do a drill. And all of a sudden, the oxygen masks all come down, the chutes come out, and we all slide down onto the runway, just to be prepared in the case of this water landing. I don't know about you, but I would never fly again. I would be so traumatized by the experience of this. No thanks, I'll take the train to Cleveland. So they got it right. There's a plan. They're prepared, the employees, and if something happens, they'll tell us what to do and we'll listen. That's really how our schools should handle it. By the way, colleges too now are getting into the act of having lockdown drills, exercises. A terrible story was Elizabeth City State University in North Carolina recently did a drill involving the police, the campus police, as well as the city police. And one student was a volunteer who volunteered to be the gunman. and he rushed into a classroom, dressed in fatigues with this phony gun. The problem is they forgot to tell everybody. Yeah, they sent an email. We're going to have a drill on such a day, but not everyone got the email. The class was terrorized. The professor said, I was ready to die. If you want to do a drill on campus, fine. Do it during school break. Don't involve the students. It's not necessary. Okay. That's bad print up there. Another thing is been popular is special backpacks. You know, if your school's not going to protect you, then maybe the parents can protect their own kids. There's these two dads in the North Shore actually, who sell these special backpacks with metal things. Plates, that's it, plates. Not the kind you eat off, Jack. He loves food. Metal plates that will protect you. Or this other guy sells these with special strips in the front, and hopefully that the bullet will hit the strip and not your heart. They also advise that you fill your backpack with very heavy books, like chemistry books, because they'll protect you. Maybe the bullet will hit the chemistry book and slow it down. Now we know there's a purpose, a real life-saving purpose of organic chemistry textbooks. By the way, Jack, did you know there actually was a case in Penn State where a student was saved by a statistics book? We write a statistic. They also tell you by fill it up with lots of heavy books. Now I haven't done research on this, but I can say that if someone actually does start shooting, the best thing to do is to drop that backpack as fast as you can and run as fast as you can. Oh, that 40-pound, 50-pound backpack is only going to slow you down. Another area is to arm the faculty. This has been a proposal in many states, and most recently Arizona, that in fact they were thinking about arming everybody, students and faculty. Now they say, well, let's just do faculty. And I can tell you that I debated one of these legislators on the Today Show, and they have a theory. They have some logic. I think it's flawed. Their logic is we need the teachers to be packing heat, because maybe Johnny wouldn't be so quick to bring a gun to school if he knew that. See, ever since Congress back in the early 1990s declared that schools are gun-free zones, that a child who actually brought a gun to school would know that he'd be the only one. So what these states want to do, and the NRA wants to do, is let's give the faculty guns, let's train them, just like the pilots. See that story recently where the pilot's gun went off inadvertently? Close call. That 747 almost went down. Can it be a deterrent? I don't think so. I think it actually might challenge Johnny. Think about it. Johnny, I could be a real big shot. I could shoot it up with Miss Grundy at noontime in the cafeteria. Boy, will they admire me. This is not a good idea. People can get hurt in the crossfire. For our teachers, marksmanship should be a matter of A's and B's, not guns and ammo. Plus, there are some teachers, and I think you know a few of them perhaps, they've been around too long. You don't want them armed with anything worse than a ruler when they deal with the kid in the back of the class who's causing trouble. Don't give them guns. There are states that really do want to arm college professors too now. For me, I carry a piece. I carry a piece of chalk. You don't want me to have a gun, that's for sure, because I don't see very well. And as you may know, there's now organizations around the country that want to allow students to carry concealed weapons on campus. Maybe the carnage at Virginia Tech would have been lower had someone else besides Mr. Joe had a gun. Well, I don't know about that. Lots of other people could have died in the crossfire. There is one state, Utah, that does allow students to have guns on campus. And recently in Nevada, the administration decided, let's give the professors special sabbaticals so they can go out and learn to shoot. This is craziness. Craziness. Speaking of guns, 2 years ago, our president, not my university, president of the United States, decided after 3 straight shootings at schools that he was going to convene a conference. That sounds like a reasonable approach. You got the school shootings, let's have a conference. The only thing, though, was that the rules of this conference was no one was allowed to use the G word, gun. No, we're not going to talk about guns. The Brady people wanted to attend, but they were said, no, thank you, you're not permitted. And one person at the conference actually did, in some of the open sessions, say gun, and it was redacted from the transcript. The president himself, in his speech, never mentioned the word gun. His speech was about character education. How can you talk about school shootings and never mention the word gun? It's a very scary word for this administration. And speaking of guns, this is amazing. Back in the 1990s, I worked with Clinton. I was on a school shooting committee, advisory committee. And back then, actually, there were a lot of mass murders that occurred in schools. You may remember, of course, Littleton and Springfield, Oregon, Cape and Jonesboro, Arkansas, the two kids who pulled the fire alarm, I mentioned them. West Paducah and one in Pennsylvania. This group, this Cutting Edge Ministries, it's a right-wing conspiratorial thinking group. They actually plotted a map of all the school shootings that happened, and amazingly, they fall on two straight lines. What's even more amazing, you see where they cross? Hope, Arkansas. What's the significance of Hope, Arkansas? That's where Clinton was born. They said, obviously, this is a conspiracy by Bill Clinton to dishonor and embarrass the NRA by joining together all these school shootings that were going to turn America against the Second Amendment. I don't know what these craziness. But it is amazing how they do line up. Another thing schools have done, maybe, and I'm sure some of the high schools and middle schools you went to, invested in this policy called zero tolerance. It's a concept that came right from the streets of New York and policing. You know, let's respond to the little things, and anything that's little, we won't let them grow to become big things. And just like in the airlines, when we had the problem with hijacking, you would then no longer, you couldn't even make a joke about hijacking. You know, they'd pull you out of line and arrest you. Well, schools now have these new regulations that say, we have a zero tolerance policy approach. You can, any threat, no matter how subtle, not even jokes, will be tolerated. You will be suspended if you do such things. And now I understand the logic here. You want to be firm and send a message about how inappropriate it is to make a threat or a joke about a threat. But there have been some real injustices. There was this, for example, a girl in Colorado. She was going to school in the morning and she grabbed her lunch bag, you know, the brown bag off the table. Problem is she brought the wrong one. She grabbed her mother's bag. When she got to school at lunchtime, opened it up, there was an apple and a little kitchen knife, you know, to slice the apple. Well, she knew you can't have a knife in school, so she went to the teacher and said, here, I brought this by mistake, my mother's lunch. See ya! She was suspended. It does see, ignorance is not an excuse, or defense, or whatever. She was suspended. There were two kids down in Georgia, second graders, who made a hit list of people they wanted to harm. The hit list included the Spice Girls and Barney the Purple Dinosaur. To me, sounds like justifiable homicide. I'm a grandparent, and I gotta watch the thing. Oh, no. Suspended. There was a fourth grader in Maryland, right after Columbine. The art teacher decided, let's get these kids to express their feelings. You know, kids keep it all bottled in. They can't express their feelings. So let's do art to express it. And the teacher said to the fourth graders, draw something, make a little art project that reflects what you're thinking about Columbine High School massacre. This one kid, well, he took his little construction paper and little scissors and he cut out a gun. And he started waving around the room. He's fourth grade, you know. See ya, he was suspended. That was perceived to be a threat. A friend of mine's son was suspended from Sharon High School because he wore this. Well, this is a replica of what he wore. That's a threat. Can you see it? Sent home, suspended. Better know better than that, buddy. That's a threat. So this, you know, I agree that we shouldn't ignore these things. We should ignore nothing. anything that's perceived to be a threat, obviously we should deal with on a case-by-case basis. But this idea that we're just going to suspend everybody, no matter what happens, makes very, very little sense. And makes a mockery and trivializes real threats. The other thing that has been popular is to try to identify these few bad apples before they wreak havoc on their classmates. Let's do profiles. Like in the airlines, we want to profile terrorists. And there are profiles out there. There's also profiles of school shooters. For example, back in the late 1990s, the Department of Education sent out this guide to safe schools. It's actually early warning. It's this list of warning signs, about 24 of them. And by the way, just in case teachers don't want to spend time reading this whole booklet, the American Psychological Association, in conjunction with MTV, put out a little pamphlet called Warning Signs. Which is like, if a teacher's concerned about Johnny, who's sitting in the back of the classroom, go into your desk, pull out this, and you'll see if Johnny's dangerous. Now, you probably can't read this because it's not very big print there, but I'll tell you some of these warning signs. One of the warning signs of someone who's dangerous is a child who brings a weapon to school. Brilliant! I could not have figured that one out myself. You need those minds at the American Psychological Association to know that that is a warning sign. Another warning sign was any child who has a limited interest in academics. That's half my son's high school. And actually, if you go down the list of warning signs, kids who wear black trench coats. I wear black trench coats. I have 3. I only wear black. Kids who listen to violent music. I mean, there's a whole. There are. I bet lots of you do. Maybe you don't really pay attention, but you this beat's good. Violent video game. You know the whole list. So there's this list of warning signs that's so extensive that almost every child is there. The problem is that in the aftermath of the school shooting, sure, all the warning signs become clear. Afterwards, what we're really talking about are yellow flags. Not red flags. Yellow flags that only turn red after the blood is spilled on them. That is, there are lots of kids out there who are bullied, who listen to dangerous music, who don't have lots of friends, who don't like school, and they don't go on these rampages. It's a matter of a lot of false positives. There are millions of kids who look and act like Klebold and Harris, but never, ever will commit a violent crime at school. And if we are overly aggressive in trying to identify these kids before they do something bad, you know what's going to happen? We're going to take kids who are already victimized and bullied and feel like no one likes them, and now we're going to intensify their feelings of persecution. Not only do the classmates hate me, but the fact that the teachers, they hate me too. They think I'm a school shooter. They put me in this special program because I don't like school. Now, also, by the way, what schools don't want to recognize is sometimes the issue is not so much the kid, it's the environment. That when you look at the situation of school shootings, oftentimes it's a very autocratic, negative, disciplinary system with very little concern for student rights and very little respect for students. So sometimes it's the way the schools run, not the issues that kids are bringing in from school. People love to point fingers at easy solutions. Oh, the media. Oh, it's always the media. In fact, 62%, based on this survey post-Columbine, 62% of Americans said that entertainment was a major cause of school and youth violence. It's the media. Very popular with you. But is it a cause? No. Is the situation that violent kids like violent themes in their entertainment, or is it violent themes make them violent? Is it the chicken or the egg? We don't know. Although recently it was in Florida where they have Waffle House. I love Waffle Houses because they serve chicken and eggs. So I ordered chicken and eggs, and I wanted to see which came first. I won't tell you because you have to go there yourself. Anyway, all of these kids, they love this stuff. But that doesn't mean that's why they became shooters. I mean, do baseball players become professional ball players because they read sporting news? No, I don't think so. That's just what they like to do. But, remember Ashcroft, a couple attorney generals ago? I mean, when he became attorney general, when Bush first came into office, he was going to clean up the media. His number one priority was to deal with these violent TV shows, violent films, and particularly violent video games. Of course, then came 9/11, and his priorities changed a little bit. But he was convinced that violent video games are training tools for school shooters. Now, I don't have a lot of time to talk about this, and maybe in the small meeting we have with the Criminal Justice Club we can. Of course, this is the day when Grand Theft Auto number 4 is coming out. I would be in line right now if I wasn't here. Actually, I waited all night, and at 10 o'clock I had to leave to get here. Of course, it's rated M for mature, which some people think, oh, that's going to protect our kids. Just put an M on it. The problem with ratings like this is they make these things more desirable. You know, what kid wouldn't want to feel like he's mature? What 14-year-old doesn't want to say, I've got an M movie, I'm a big shot, I'm a kid, I'm a grown-up. They don't prevent kids from buying games, absolutely not, but they certainly do intensify the fascination and the desirability when you put an M on it. Postal. Anybody here play Postal? Oh, that's my favorite. Postal 1, Postal 2, Postal 3 is coming out soon. They talk about mass murder opportunities and the fun of gunning down an entire high school marching band. And you know, I play these games for educational purposes only, not because I like them. And what I usually do is I'm a guy, so I don't read instruction manuals. Don't bother. Just trial and error. So I loaded up Postal, and I hit every key in my keyboard just to see what happened. And I hit Alt-K, and you take your gun, you hold it to your chin, and you go, I have no regrets. And you blow your head off. Every time you hit Alt-K. Now, the problem, of course, is then the game's over, and you have to go back to the first level. But it is, what's amazing about games, of course, and I'm not going to share a clip because I don't have time. If we really want to predict who the troublesome kids are, then we need more guidance counselors, we need more teachers, so that they can get to know the students. You know, a lot of the kids, like Columbine High School had 1,400 students. Thurston High School, 1,800. You have these huge schools where students feel alienated. They feel like no one knows who they are, no one cares, and maybe they're right. Anybody from Brockton here? Brockton, 4,000, 5,000 students at Brockton High School. You see, we made the mistake about 40 years ago thinking that, well, why have 3 high schools, each with 900 students? Why not just have one high school for all 2,700? Economy of scale. Any economists here, you'll understand. The problem is we shouldn't have schools that have thousands and thousands of students. We need smaller schools, more teachers, more guidance counselors. Obviously it costs money, but we'd rather spend money on hardware because it looks good. It looks good to the parents, I'm sure. Another thing is after-school programs. I worked actually with Janet Reno and Bill Clinton a lot during the 1990s on the whole issue of after-school programs. In fact, there's a chart here, as you can see, where 49% of juvenile violent crimes occur in the after-school hours. It's the prime time for juvenile crime. Kids get out of school at 2 o'clock, and the rate of juvenile violence soars until about 7 or 8 o'clock at night when parents get home to make dinner and start supervising. And by the way, it's not just juvenile violence that peaks in the after-school hours. It's drug use, alcohol use, even teen pregnancy. You know, when I was growing up, we had lovers' lanes. You know, some of the faculty will remember. I think I saw some of you guys there. I want to shine a flashlight in your cars. We wanted to sort of fool around. We had to go to lovers' lane at midnight. But now there aren't any lovers' lanes anymore because they've all been turned into condominiums. You know, from condoms to condos. But they're not necessary because now, with over 50% of kids growing up either in a single-parent home where the parent works full-time or in a two-career household where both parents work full-time, most of the kids are on their own after school. And you know, the bedroom is unguarded. And you know what they say? When the cat's away, the mice will have sex. They do. So, teenage pregnancy, violence, drug use, it all peaks in the after-school hours. And it's not that the kids are bad kids, it's that they're bored kids. And what we need to do is to start reprioritizing what we're doing with our kids in the after-school hours. Funny thing is that many communities investing in curfews, like midnight curfews, very little juvenile crime occurs after midnight. Most kids are asleep. Most of it occurs in the after-school hours. After-school programs, smaller schools, and one final thing. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Okay. One final thing, because my time is up, is bring back the frills. When I went to school, and when Jack went to school, and a lot of faculty here, we used to have a varied curriculum. Of course, we had math and English and science, but we had the other things, drama and music, and this club and that organization. And what's happened in the past 10 years, because we are focused so much on test scores, No Child Left Behind and all that, the MCAS exams and all that, and budget crunches, is school districts have gotten rid of the frills. We need to bring those back. We need violins in school, not violence. Because it's the violin, it's the drama, the music, and the sports that makes school even palatable for many kids. It's the things for kids who perhaps are challenged academically and feel marginal in science and math. At least they can feel good about themselves because they perform well in the chorus or the drama or the ball field. So this has been a huge mistake, and we need to turn the clock back on that as well. So because my time is up, let me try to conclude with this message. The things that we need to do now in terms of school violence, and this is true in high schools and to some extent in college as well, they take money. They take time, they take effort, and they do take money. Talking about more teachers, more guidance counselors, and in colleges, by the way, currently the level of the number of psychologists per students in this country in campus counseling centers is about 1/3 below what the prescribed number should be. All of this takes money, but really the choice is ours. Either pay for the programs now or pray for the victims later. Thank you very much.